the way professional traders classify and categorize the forex pair is different from you. Okay, the way the retail guy is using to categorize the currency pair is absolutely destroying them. Okay, is absolutely hurting them. Okay, now welcome to this brand new video, right, for the video series professional versus retail, right, where in this series, right, I'm going to show you what is the approach, right, the pro trader will take, right, which is responsible for billions of dollars of profits, right, across the trading industry. Okay, now the way we categorize the forex pair is simply different. Okay, now a typical retail guy, when they categorize the forex pair, right, they basically categorize the entire forex market into 4 different categories, right? The major pair, the minor pair, right, the cross pair, and the exotics, right? Now the major pair is basically anything that is traded against the US dollar, right? The major pair. And the minor pair is basically things that is traded against the US dollar but is outside of the G20 country, right? So the major is really the G20, right, that is trading against the US dollar, right? So currency like British pound, Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, right, the euro, right, these are all major currencies. And the minor currencies, a very good example of the minor currency will be US dollar, ringgit Malaysia, right? Okay, or the US dollar, Singapore dollar, right, or the US dollar, Brazilian real, right? These are minors, right? And the cross is basically currencies that are trading without the US dollar. So something like the New Zealand dollar, Australian dollar, right? Something like that. And the exotics is really currencies that are not easily accessible to the retail markets, right? Things like the Egyptian pound, the Turkish lira, right? This is the exotics things, right? Exotics pair. Now, the way retail traders have been educated, right? The way they categorize currency pair into these 4 major categories is really due to the kind educations from the brokers, right? Okay, because the way this thing is categorized is really categorized based on the volatility, right? They are basically categorized the lowest volatility, right, in the major pair, right, and a slight higher volatility, right, on the minor pair, and a higher volatility on the cross pair, and you will have the highest volatility on the exotic pair, right? So this is how the brokers, want retail guy to believe, and they will encourage, right, the retail guy to trade only the majors or the minors, right, because it means that there are less risk for the brokers. Okay, now the way the professional traders categorize is very different, right? So this will be a 3 parts video, right? So the first part video I will be talking about the currency regimes. The second thing I will be talking about the commodity currencies, right? And the third part is that I will show you, right, how you should categorize it, and how you should use it, and how you should trade it, and why you should categorize it in such a way. Okay, so talking about regime, right? In the forex market, right, there are basically two types of regime, right? A free floating currency regime and a peg regime. Now, a free floating currency regime basically means that the central authorities, right, they allowed the currency exchange rate, right, to be determined by the markets, right? So they the currency is traded, right, on a free floating situations, right? So they do not intervene it too hardly, right? And they just trade, they just allowed the currency to trade itself, to do its own work. Okay, so this is a free floating regime. Now, a peg regime is that the central authorities, right, will only allow, right, the currency to trade within a certain range, right? So let's say the Hong Kong dollar, right? The Hong Kong dollar is trading around 6.5 to 7, right? So they're only allowed to trade between 6.5 and 7, right? This is set by the Hong Kong monetary authorities, right? Is set by them, right? So a peg regime simply means that it's not a free floating thing, right? It's basically that you can only trade within a range, right? Central authorities, they do this because they want to protect the exports and imports of the country, and also trying to protect the currency from speculations. Okay, so this is why they do a peg regime. Okay, now as a trader, right, you should really focus on trading the free floating regime, right? Because a free floating regimes, right, will have a much higher volatility compared to a peg regime, right? Because it's trading freely, right, and the central authorities will not intervene, right, will not manage it until it is necessary, right? So the free floating regimes, they will have a better chance of great move, right? A better chance of very huge volatility and a very huge opportunity, right? Because you know that as a trader, we are really the slave of volatility, right? So without volatility, we are fucked up. Okay, right? We cannot live without volatility. Okay, for a trader, the volatility is the blood, right? It's really the blood for the trader, right? Because I've mentioned it a lot of time, right? If you buy something that it doesn't move, you're not going to make any money. Okay, so first thing first, right, you should figure out, right, whether the currency is a peg regime or a free floating regime, right? And once you figure this out, right, you should focus on the free floating regimes, right? Because it provides a higher volatility, right? Okay, so once you figure out the regime, right, you then move on to the next video, right, which is going to which I'm going to talk about the commodity currencies, right? So currencies that are heavily depending on the commodity. Okay, this will be a major thing, right, in the currencies, right? Because it basically determine, right, and it basically show, right, the volatility, right, between the free floating currencies. Okay, so make sure to stay tuned and wait for the next video, right? okay, wait it to publish, right? I have already recorded, right? Just wait it to be published, right? And you can just go and watch it, okay? So takeaway, right? Figure out whether the currency is a peg regime or a commodity regime, a free floating regime, right? A very good example would be that US dollar, right? The pound, the euro, right? The Australian dollar, the New Zealand dollar, right? These are free floating currencies, okay? Now, for the peg regime, right? A good example would be Singapore dollar, right? Sorry, not Singapore dollar, the Chinese yuan, the Hong Kong dollar, right? And Malaysia ringgit in the past, right? In Malaysia ringgit, it was pegged around 3.8, right? During the 80s and during the 70s and 80s, right? It is pegged on 380, right? Against the dollar, right? So this is a example of peg regime, right? So first thing first, identify the currency regime, right? Figure out whether it's a free floating or whether it's a peg regime, okay? I will see you on the next. No. Before that, remember to leave me the feedback, okay? As usual, leave me the feedback and hit the subscribe button and the bell, okay? I'm gonna see you on the next video.